Hey everyone, it's Mr. Kaplan. I hope you guys had a wonderful spring break. What I'm going to do is do a read aloud for you guys. So just click the link to follow the read aloud. We are still reading Prisoner B-3087. Remember the last time that we read, Yannick was taken to a new concentration camp. In the midst of all the terrible stuff that was going on, there was a debate or an argument on whether or not one of the children should have a bar mitzvah. And some were saying yes, some were saying no, and it ended up that they chose to do the bar mitzvah. And so we are going to continue reading. This is chapter 18. I stood at the water pump, scrubbing my body. It was bitterly cold out, but I didn't care. I would scrub my body. I decided each and every morning, no matter how cold it was, no matter how tired I was alive, and I meant to stay that way. We had no soap, but at least I was able to wash away the caking dirt of Birkenau, which is the name of the concentration camp. I paid careful attention to where I had been tattooed. Too many others had let their tattoos get infected, and that had taken them to the camp surgeon. You didn't want to go to the camp surgeon, ever. I even rubbed my teeth with my wet fingers. We had no toothbrushes or toothpaste, of course, but it felt important to remember what it was like to be human. As I scrubbed the taint of Birkenau from my body, I read the signs the Nazis had posted above the water pump. The block is your home. Maintain cleanliness. And one louse, your death. Big jokers, the Nazis. You could play by the rules, keep yourself clean, do everything right, and still the Nazis would kill you for looking at them wrong. But I played the game. Work at Birkenau was as bad as everywhere else. Here, as in Plazhou, we were to build new barracks. The ground for the new section was so big it would double the size of the camp when it was finished. The Nazis called the new camp B-3, but we prisoners called it Mexico. Oh, excuse me. I don't know where the name started, but Mexico always sounded exotic to me. Warm and sunny with beaches and laughing faces. Maybe that's why the prisoners nicknamed it Mexico, to make them think of something very different from what B-3 really was. The camp storehouse where the Nazis kept all the valuables the Jews from the towns and villages brought with them when they first arrived, we called Canada. Food was weak coffee substitute in the morning, watery soup at lunch, and bread at night. The bread was hard and tasteless and had to serve as breakfast as well. The soup was tepid, and you were lucky if there was a limp potato floating in it. I learned a trick with the soup, which was to wait a while before lining up for it. The heavier parts of the soup sank to the bottom. If you were among the last in line, your soup was thicker. I almost always got some chunk in my soup by holding back until the end. Just that little bit of extra food might keep me from becoming a Mussulman, which is one of those older, or we're not necessarily older, but one of the people living in the concentration camps that is just skin and bones. No, they're alive, but there really is no life left in them. We were forbidden to go out at night, so instead of the camp latrines, we had to use a barrel in the barrack if we had to go to the bathroom. There were 2 barrels for 500 people. So again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people died in the concentration camps, not necessarily from the gas chambers or from being shot. Sometimes they just simply died because of the conditions that they were living in. Again, if you have 500 people and only 2 buckets for the restrooms, that's unhealthy. That's disease being carried through there. So a lot of people died simply from just the living conditions that they were in. Prisoners stood guard at the doors with clocks. Their job was to make sure no prisoner spent more than 2 minutes in the latrin. If he took longer than that, an SS guard would go in and beat you with a club until you left. There was to be no dawdling at Birkenau. The joke was on the Germans this time, though. By leaving the same prisoner stationed at the the latrin, the one place we all had to go throughout the day, they gave us secret postmen. The Nazis never wanted us to talk to one another, but if you ever had a message for someone else, you could whisper it to the prisoner on watch at the latrin door as you went in. He would remember it and quietly whisper it to the recipient when he came to take care of his business later that day. One day, as I went into the latrin with another prisoner, I heard the watchman whisper, "Tonight." I didn't know what the message meant, but it wasn't for me anyway. That night, I was fast asleep on my shelf, slotted in with all the other prisoners in my barracks, when shouts startled me out of my sleep. Capos and SS guards were in the barracks, yelling at us to get up and smacking at the prisoners with their clubs. I blinked, disoriented and scared, but I managed to tumble off my shelf. This was something new for Birkenau, where usually they let us at least sleep through the night. We quickly assembled in the yard, standing in rows, and I could tell immediately that something was wrong. The floodlights in the towers weren't sliding lazily over the grounds like usual. They were turned outside, where they swept the woods quickly, back and forth, guard dogs barked beyond barbed wire fence surrounding the camp, and cars and tanks rolled by outside. "Prison break," a man next to me whispered. "A prison break? Who? How?" My heart thumped in my chest. I wish I was with them, whoever they were, running for the forest, the hills, anywhere but here. "Get out," I prayed for them. "Get away. Fly." A Nazi came around, checking our numbers against the clipboard. There were always prisoners who couldn't get out of bed again, who had become Musselmanners. That's what the Nazis wanted, anyway, to kill us with work and starvation. But which of the missing prisoners were dying back in the barracks, and which of them were running free in the woods? The Nazi grabbed my hand and read the number on my arm, then moved on to the next prisoner. My wrist still hurt where he'd grabbed me. His grip was so tight. The Nazis were mad. Prisoners were not supposed to stand up for themselves. Prisoners weren't supposed to escape. Will they make it out? Where will they go if they do? Could I escape from Birkenau too? I wondered. Could I live in the woods eating berries and nuts, sleeping out in the cold? It couldn't be worse than the camps, and maybe not every Pole was like the awful boys throwing snowballs at the stations. Pole is someone from Poland. Remember a few chapters back when they got off the train station, there were a bunch of Polish children that were hissing snide and nasty remarks to the Jews getting off the train. We stood for hours late into the night. They even went through the roll call again, as though some of us might have slipped off in between, which didn't seem possible. Then almost at dawn, there were shouts of excitement from the Nazis beyond the fence. The gates were open, and a ragged bunch of prisoners were marched back inside, all beaten and bloodied. I immediately felt sick to my stomach and swayed on my feet. The escaped prisoners hadn't met... I lost my place. The escaped prisoners hadn't made it. They'd been caught. How? I didn't know. And how many had run, and how many they'd caught, I didn't know either. But these men hadn't made it, and the price would be severe. The SS officer of the watch sneered at us. "There is no escape from Birkenau," he cried. "No escape. Perhaps some of you are thinking about running. There is no waiting to help you on the outside. There is no one waiting to help you on the outside." Just read the same sentence twice. "There is nowhere for you to hide. You will be caught, and here is what we do to those who try to escape." They lined up the men against a wall in the assembly yard. Rat-tat-tat-tat. The watch officer gunned them down himself, riddling their bodies with bullets. "Bring forward their work detail," the guard cried. Other men were pulled out of their ranks. Prisoners who had done nothing but work alongside the men who'd run, prisoners who hadn't tried to escape. The SS man shot them too. Then the soldier turned the gun on us in the roll call ranks. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. I closed my eyes and prayed the bullets wouldn't find me, trembling as prisoners were hit and fell dead to the ground all around me. I couldn't move, though. I couldn't run. If I flinched, I would be singled out and shot. This is the punishment for escape. All of you will share the blame. The watch officer yelled. He shot until the machine gun ran out of bullets. Click, click, click. The SS officer threw his weapon to the ground. "Clean up this mess," he ordered, and marched away, leaving us to carry away our own dead. That night, in what little sleep there was left, I dreamed that Omengoth was chasing me with his dogs. I ran and ran and ran, but I could never quite get away. Then one of the dogs leaped and bit my left arm. I woke up, screaming and holding my burning left arm. My left arm, where the Nazis had carved B-3087 into my skin. Alright, that's that for now. So what I think is important about this chapter is that it shows it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you try to escape, if you didn't try to escape. It doesn't matter what you did, or I guess didn't do. If you were in the concentration camp, you were at risk for being killed by the Nazis. The next section that we're reading is Auschwitz in 1945. So we know we're coming towards the end of Yannick's journey only because the war ends in 1945. Auschwitz is probably one of the most well-known concentration camps in the world that existed during World War II, and I'm going to try to get my sister to send me pictures, but she's been to Auschwitz. She did a trip to Poland, I think 2 years ago, and did a whole tour of all the major concentration camps in Eastern Europe, and Auschwitz was one of them. So I will try to find those pictures from her trip. I hope you enjoyed the reading. Thank you, guys.